Just a quick lesson I picked up from my gender studies class. So there's this concept of toxic masculinity, which I don't really agree with. I don't agree with the conceptualization, although I do think there is some truth in it. And it made me question, to what extent are the behaviors I go about, the gendered behaviors, to what extent are they a little bit toxic or perhaps a little bit misguided, right? And I was thinking one of them is the way guys feel like we have to do this kind of mean mugging or posturing, putting up an attitude, sizing up other guys, evaluating them in terms of like, can I take him on? Like a potential competitor, a fighter, like if a fight were to break out, can I take him? This kind of attitude. Um, and I think the reason I don't agree with this conceptualization of toxic masculinity is because I don't think it's the masculinity itself that is toxic. I think it's the situation. Some situations require certain virtues, certain ways of dealing with them, especially if you're in like a scarcity situation, a war-torn situation, a situation where the social institutions break down, you don't have sanctions. Like, for example, even my teacher, the first day of class, she's like, I'm against plagiarism. If you plagiarism, I'll kick your ass, or like some shit like that. She was uh, laying down all these sanctions, right? Like, I'm gonna kick your ass if you plagiarize. And I was just thinking, how ridiculous is it that you have nothing to draw on when you make this threat except other institutions, right? Um, and and so like let's say if you were in another region somewhere else in the world, I don't know, Afghanistan or some shit, where the social institutions have broken down, would you be able to make the same kind of threat that you're making in front of the class right now? Because what recourse would you have in another place where you don't have bureaucracy set up, you don't have cops, you don't have all this shit, right? So in that kind of situation, you have to back up what you say with a real ability to like enforce. Like, you have to be able to use force, right? You have to be able to fight. And uh and, and so a lot of guys, like I look at immigrant guys who come to Canada, and they have this kind of posturing going on. They're very like sullen, they're mean mugging, they're just withdrawn. And there's something attractive about that. Like their resting heart rate will be very low, just calm and through everything, fucking everything, right? It is attractive in a way, but it's also unattractive. Girls are kind of repelled by this. Like, if you just look at homosexuals or you look at transgender people, I've been looking at them in my classes. They are the ones with all the women around them. Why is that? It's because they drop that guard completely. They're completely present. They're completely open and free in their bodies, like singing, dancing, laughing, enjoying themselves, mirth, being a little bit feminine, a little bit free in their bodies, the way they dress, the style, just all of it, the going out, just the stuff they talk about, very free, relaxed, open, present energy, right? And so we guys, we're kind of misguided in thinking that this kind of mean mugging, this posturing, this being tough, whatever, is going to impress women. But no, we're doing it because we're in the competition with guys, right? It's a response to the competitive environment we think we are in with respect to other guys. It's not there to impress girls. And that I used to fall into that trap for the longest time. And it's so hard to drop that guard. It is so hard to drop that guard later on in life, because it feels vulnerable. It feels very vulnerable, right? So I'm not going to call this behavior toxic. I don't think it is toxic necessarily across the board to be posturing, or to try to make yourself a certain way, to be able to handle competition, to be able to enforce what you say with real physical force, fighting power, so on. That's not necessarily toxic in itself. It is a response to a toxic situation that a lot of people around the world find themselves in. So to call it just toxic straight up, I think is a mistake, is a half truth. I think there's some truth in it, because in Canada, we are in a very abundant society where the institutions do exist, so we can use sanctions against other people without having to fight, without having to enforce what we say. And in this abundant world in Canada, mean mugging, posturing, fighting, all this shit is toxic here in this context, in this society. So it's a half truth. There is some truth in it. And so as a guy in this society, it pays to be vulnerable. It pays to be free and open in your body, to drop that guard, And that is what girls find attractive here. I think that's what girls find attractive. And I think that's a lesson that's a lot of guys are missing. Myself, I was missing it and especially since I went through the prison system in my mid-20s, there you were always kind of just steely-eyed from paranoia. Like you're always having to size up people as potential threats, always having to be on your guard. You're shifty-eyed, just always fucking looking around, being suspicious. The threat is very real. So that mean mugging, like you have, like even the beard. Think about just even the beard, right? It pays to hide your face, to have a big beard, to like a lion's mane, right? It's literally a lion's mane. But then if you ask girls, girls hate, like for the longest time I used to wear the just not even a full beard, but like just a little thing here to try to make my face longer, to change its proportions, to make my like a lion's mane, right? To appear tougher or something, to appear less fat in my face. But girls hated that, and I never knew that until recently when they started opening up to me. They either I prefer like a full beard that's like groomed, you're not trying to hide anything, or like completely clean shaven so they can see your face. Girls hate any kind of distortion you put on your face, on your body, because it keeps them from evaluating the real you, from you being free and vulnerable with them, being open with them. And man, that's a hard, it's very unpalatable. A lot of guys will reject that. They'll be like, no, girls like you being like a bodybuilder, being tough, having a beard that hides your face or like whatever. Um, or they'll do, I don't know, but they'll do all these modifications. And I'm not saying these are wrong. I think you should do it for yourself. If you like being a certain way, do it for yourself, and then that in itself becomes attractive to the girl. Like if you're working out and you like building huge muscles or whatever, if you do it for yourself, that becomes attractive to the girl by virtue of that, because you're doing it for yourself, right? It's not because it's objectively attractive to her, it's because you are doing it for yourself and deriving satisfaction from that, right? So all this posturing that you do, all this mean mugging, like just walking around with like a frown, like withdrawn, like posturing, like just like this kind of shit, whatever. Just keep in mind that's all in response to the guy's world, not for girls. Yeah, that's really it.